The complete record. I titled the document, my fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. The clock on my laptop read 3:47 a.m. Outside my kitchen window, the world was still dark, but inside me, a clarity had dawned that wouldn't let me sleep. I was Ellen Kelly, 54 years old, breast cancer patient, and as of yesterday, former marketing director of Pinnacle Hospitality Group. 20 years of dedication erased in a 20-minute Zoom call. For the last hour, I'd been compiling evidence, performance data, client testimonials, revenue growth figures under my leadership, all contradicting Richard Marcus's claims about my underperformance. I added a timeline of my cancer treatments alongside documentation of projects completed during those same periods. The facts spoke for themselves. No commentary needed. My finger hovered over the send button. The email was addressed to Pinnacle's three major investors. Once sent, there would be no going back. 20 years of professional relationships, of carefully maintained corporate diplomacy, would be forever altered. "What are you doing up?" Michael's voice came softly from the doorway. My husband of 30 years stood there in his faded university t-shirt, concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "Making a decision," I replied, turning the screen slightly so he could see. He moved behind me, placing his hands gently on my shoulders, careful to avoid the spot where the chemo port was still tender. "You're sure?" I nodded, thinking of our son finishing college next year, our daughter just starting her career, and Michael's heart condition that required monthly medication. I thought of the COBRA paperwork showing the $2,000 monthly premium we couldn't possibly afford on just his teacher's salary. "This isn't just about me anymore," I said quietly. I clicked send, and with that simple action, set in motion events that would change everything. Flashback. The termination. 3 days earlier, I sat at my home office desk, preparing for what I thought was a routine budget review. My bright purple headscarf, chosen deliberately for its boldness, covered what remained of my hair after 6 months of chemotherapy. I'd learned that vibrant colors made people less uncomfortable around the visible signs of my illness. "You're not putting in any effort at all," Richard Marcus said, his voice coldly professional through my laptop speakers. "The numbers don't lie. Your productivity metrics have been consistently below target for the past quarter." The Zoom grid showed Richard's impassive face alongside three HR representatives I barely recognized. My stomach tightened, but 20 years of corporate meetings had taught me to keep my expression neutral. "I've maintained all our major client relationships," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Westin Hotels renewed their contract last week. Riverside Properties expanded their order by 30%. Richard sighed, the sound distorted through my speakers. "Relationship management isn't enough. We need people who can drive quantifiable growth. The executive team has made the difficult decision to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The words landed like physical blows. 20 years. 2 decades of my life given to this company. I'd worked through every chemotherapy session, scheduling treatments for Friday afternoons so I could recover over weekends. I hadn't missed a single client deadline, not even on days when the nausea was so severe I could barely stand. "I understand," I said quietly, though I didn't understand at all. "Is there anything else?" Diane from HR stepped in with practiced efficiency. "We'll send your final paycheck next Friday along with information about continuing your health insurance. Your company laptop and phone will be remotely deactivated at the end of this call. Please mail them back within 5 business days." I nodded mechanically, thinking of my family. How would I tell them? How would Michael and I manage the medical bills without my insurance? "Thank you for the opportunity," I said automatically, years of professionalism taking over where emotion threatened to break through. "I wish you all the best." The meeting ended. I sat motionless, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen. The woman looking back at me seemed like a stranger, pale, shocked, wearing a bright scarf that now seemed absurdly cheerful. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my colleague and closest friend at Pinnacle. "Call me now." When I did, her voice was tight with anger. "They just announced your termination in the all-hands meeting. Richard said you'd been underperforming for months and that they couldn't carry dead weight during a growth phase, Ellen." It was brutal. I felt suddenly cold. This wasn't just a termination. It was character assassination, and I had a sinking feeling that the worst was yet to come. Flashback: the early days, my journey with Pinnacle Hospitality Group began 20 years ago when I joined as a marketing coordinator, fresh out of graduate school at 34, older than most of my peers after taking time to raise our young children. The company was small then, just 20 employees helping independent hotels compete with major chains. "You have a natural talent for this," Thomas Wise, the marketing director at the time, told me after I'd successfully landed our first luxury resort client. "You understand people, not just data." Thomas became my mentor. Under his guidance, I thrived, eventually leading a team of 12 and managing our highest value client relationships. When he retired 7 years ago, promoting me was a natural decision. My department consistently delivered results, with client retention rates above 90% and year-over-year revenue growth exceeding targets. I still remember the board meeting where Thomas announced his retirement and recommended me as his replacement. "Ellen doesn't just understand marketing," he'd said. "She understands that this business is built on relationships, trust, and the long game. Numbers matter, but people matter more." Those words echoed in my mind now as I sat in my car in the parking garage after the termination call, finally allowing the tears to come. I thought of my mother, who'd worked as a hotel housekeeper for 30 years, teaching me that dignity wasn't given by others but maintained from within. "Never let them see you break," she'd say. But alone in my car, I broke. 20 years of dedication dismissed in 20 minutes. 6 months of fighting cancer while maintaining my professional responsibilities, all erased with corporate platitudes about productivity metrics. By the time I drove home, I had dried my tears and composed myself. Michael didn't need another worry. His mild heart condition was stable but required monthly medication covered by my health insurance. At home, the aftermath. "You're what?" Michael looked up from the pasta he was stirring, his face registering disbelief. It was dinner time, and I'd finally found the courage to tell him. "Fired. Terminated. Let go." Each synonym felt like tasting a different kind of bitter herb. Michael set down the wooden spoon and embraced me, his artist's hands, slightly stained with blue paint from his afternoon high school art class, strong against my back. "Those bastards," he whispered into my hair. "After everything you've done for them. After working through chemo." I pulled back to look at him, seeing anger, but also fear in his eyes. Michael had always been the emotional heart of our family, while I was the practical provider. His teaching salary was stable but modest. My income had put our children through college, paid our mortgage, and covered our health insurance. "We'll figure it out," he said, but the worry lines around his eyes had deepened. That night, after a quiet dinner where we'd avoided the subject in front of our visiting daughter, we lay in bed calculating numbers. Cobra would cost nearly $2,000 a month to maintain our health coverage. My next oncology appointment was in 2 weeks, with another round of maintenance therapy scheduled. I could sell some paintings, Michael offered. His work had developed a modest following in local galleries, but hardly enough to replace my salary. "No," I said firmly. "Your art is not our emergency fund." But privately, I wondered how long our actual emergency fund would last with medical bills and everyday expenses. The next morning, I woke early, my body still programmed to its work schedule despite everything. I made coffee and opened my personal laptop at the kitchen table. First, I needed to understand the extent of the damage. I logged into my LinkedIn account to update my profile and found 3 messages from clients who had somehow already heard about my departure. Their confusion was evident. They'd had no warning, no transition plan. "Is everything okay? We were counting on your guidance for our summer campaign," wrote the marketing manager from Harbor View Resorts. I crafted careful responses, professional to the end. But each message reinforced the growing knot of anger in my stomach. These were relationships I'd built and nurtured for years, some even during hospital stays, and Richard had severed them without a thought. As I scrolled through my emails, I found a message from Thomas, time-stamped 1:23 a.m. "Just heard the news. Call me. We need to talk." When I reached him an hour later, his normally calm voice was tight with controlled fury. "This is unconscionable, Ellen. The board wasn't consulted about your termination. Richard presented it as a done deal during yesterday's executive briefing. Can they do that? I asked. Fire a director without board approval? Technically, yes. Richard has hiring and firing authority, but it's a terrible decision, and the way he's handling it is even worse. Thomas paused. He's presenting your medical treatments as absenteeism. Medical leave? I never took leave, I protested. I worked through every treatment. I know, but Richard's telling a different story. According to him, your performance has been suffering for months because you've been distracted by personal issues. The injustice of it stole my breath. I had meticulously documented every project, every client interaction, precisely to prevent this kind of misrepresentation. Even on my worst days, when the chemo left me nauseated and exhausted, I'd maintain my responsibilities. There's more, Thomas continued. There's going to be a restructuring of the marketing department. Richard's bringing in someone from his previous company to replace you. Based on the timeline, this has been planned for weeks. The realization hit me like physical pain. I hadn't been fired for performance issues. Those were just the excuse. Richard had wanted me gone from the beginning, had likely been building a case against me while I was fighting for my life. The Strategy Cafe. A week later, I sat in the corner booth of Harborside Cafe, nursing a cup of tea I couldn't taste. My job search was going nowhere. 3 promising interviews had ended with vague promises to be in touch after I disclosed my cancer treatment, never explicitly mentioned as an issue. But the shift in energy was unmistakable. I opened my laptop to check my email, finding a new message from Pinnacle's legal department. They were demanding repayment of salary for hours they claimed I'd improperly logged while attending medical appointments. The vindictiveness was breathtaking and strategically timed when I was most financially vulnerable. Ellen? I thought that was you. I looked up to see Christine Parker, a marketing executive I'd mentored 10 years ago, now CMO at a major resort chain. I heard what happened, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. It's all over the industry. I started to put on a brave face, but something in her kind, direct gaze broke through my defenses. To my horror, tears welled in my eyes. Christine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. No, don't apologize. What they did was shameful. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text. Change of plans. We're having an impromptu meeting here. Over the next half hour, 4 more women arrived, all marketing executives I'd worked with, mentored, or helped over my years at Pinnacle. Women now in positions of influence throughout the hospitality industry. We've been comparing notes, said Meredith, now VP of Marketing at a luxury hotel group. Richard Marcus has a history. He did the same thing at Meridian Hotels, cut experienced directors just before their stock options vested, then brought in his own people at lower salaries. Which is exactly what happened to me, I said quietly. My shares would have vested next month. It's worse than that, added Rebecca, who worked with a major industry association. The company that's looking to acquire Pinnacle, Action Hospitality Group, Richard has connections there. He worked with their CEO at Meridian. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Richard was positioning himself for a role in the merged company, making himself valuable by cutting costs and bringing in loyal people. So what do we do? I asked, looking around at these women, once my crutches, now my allies. Christine smiled. We've already started. Rebecca's been quietly speaking with industry contacts about Richard's history. I've documented how he mishandled the transition with your clients, 3 of whom have reached out to me directly with concerns. And I've been in touch with Thomas, Meredith added. He's providing historical performance data that contradicts everything Richard is claiming about the marketing department under your leadership. For the first time in weeks, I felt something unfamiliar. Hope mixed with profound gratitude. I wasn't alone in this fight. The relationships I'd built over decades, the people I'd helped and mentored, were now forming a network of support I hadn't expected. As we strategized over coffee and pastries, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Robert Weston himself, CEO of Weston Hotels, one of Pinnacle's largest clients. Ellen, I just heard about Jenny being fired for questioning the new standardized approach. What the hell is happening at Pinnacle? I gave him a measured response, focusing on organizational changes rather than personal criticisms. This new standardized approach won't work for us, he said flatly. Our hotels are built on unique cultural identities. Cookie cutter marketing would destroy everything we've built together. I understand your concern, I replied carefully. I want to offer you a position, he continued, surprising me. Director of Marketing for Westin Hotels, working directly with me. We've been impressed with your work for years, regardless of what that new coup claims. The offer was unexpected and precisely timed, a life raft when I most needed one. But there was a complication. Robert, I should be transparent. I'm still undergoing cancer treatment. It hasn't affected my work performance, but my sister is a 5-year breast cancer survivor, he interrupted. We have excellent health coverage and flexible work arrangements. Your health is a priority, not a liability. Tears pricked my eyes at the simple acknowledgement of my humanity. The women around the table, hearing my side of the conversation, were smiling. After the call ended, Christine raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings, and to the power of truth. The truth revealed, after accepting Robert's offer, I opened my laptop that evening to cancel the email I drafted to Pinnacle's investors. With a new job secured, did I still need to send it? As I contemplated, a message arrived from Sarah. Richard just announced a company-wide salary reduction to improve our acquisition profile. Meanwhile, he's getting a retention bonus. People are panicking. I closed the cancellation window. The investors still needed to see the truth, not for my sake now, but for everyone else at Pinnacle who couldn't speak up. The email would send as scheduled. At precisely 9 a.m. the next day, my comprehensive dossier arrived in the inboxes of Pinnacle's 3 major investors. The response was swift and seismic. By 10:30 a.m., Thomas called. The investors are in an emergency meeting with the board. Your email caused quite the firestorm. At noon, Sarah texted. Richard got called into a video conference with the investors. He looked like he was going to be sick. By 3 p.m., Robert forwarded me an email he had received from Pinnacle's lead investor requesting an urgent discussion about Westin Hotel's relationship with the company. Similar emails had apparently gone out to all major clients. At 5:15 p.m., a formal email arrived from Carol Hamilton, the managing partner of Pinnacle's largest investment firm. Ms. Kelly, thank you for bringing these matters to our attention. We take the issues you've raised extremely seriously and have initiated an immediate review. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly. I scheduled the call for the following morning, then turned my attention to preparing for my new position at Westin. Whatever happened at Pinnacle now would happen without my direct involvement. The truth was in the right hands. That evening, as Michael and I discussed my new role over dinner, my phone buzzed with a Pinnacle company-wide email that had been forwarded by multiple former colleagues. Effective immediately, Richard Marcus is no longer with Pinnacle Hospitality Group. The message was brief, corporate, and absolutely devastating in its implications. Truth, it seemed, still had power after all. Epilogue. 6 months later, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my new blazer, bought to celebrate both my final cancer treatment and 6 months at Westin Hotels. My hair was growing back, short and surprisingly silver. I decided against coloring it. The silver felt earned, a badge of both survival and wisdom. My office at Westin overlooked the harbor. On my desk sat a small sculpture Michael had created to mark my cancer-free diagnosis, a bird taking flight, crafted from reclaimed materials. Rising from the ashes, he'd said when he gave it to me. Just like you. Pinnacle's story had continued without me, though I heard the details through various channels. The investors had installed an interim management team and halted the acquisition talks with action. An internal investigation had revealed that Richard's optimization strategy had been specifically designed to inflate short-term metrics at the expense of long-term client relationships. Several fired employees, including Jenny, had been reinstated with back pay. As for Richard, I heard he had left the state, his reputation in the hospitality industry irrevocably tarnished. The vindication should have felt sweeter, but mostly I felt relief that the harm he'd caused was being repaired. Carol Hamilton had offered me a formal apology and even suggested I return to Pinnacle in an executive role. I had declined politely, having found something better at Weston, a company that valued not just my professional contribution, but my humanity as well. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Don't forget dinner at 7 o'clock. The kids are coming. Mom, too. I smiled, gathering my things. Mom, now in her 80s, had moved in with us after Dad passed. You took care of me, she'd said when we offered. Now I get to see you thrive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. A major campaign launch, a potential expansion of Weston's boutique hotel concept to international markets, and a full life beyond cancer and corporate politics. The past couldn't be changed, but it had led me here, to a place where my work was valued, my health was prioritized, and my family drew closer around me. As I turned off the office light, I thought about the document that had changed everything. The complete record, I'd called it. That the complete record of a life is never just about work statistics or corporate achievements. It's about the relationships we build, the truths we tell, and the freedom we find when we finally stand in our full worth. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.